Good evening, Professor, classmates. My name is Lisa Stewart Ball. I'm here to talk to you about crossing ethical boundaries. I work for a social service agency where we house approximately 72 adult men that are experiencing a temporary bout of homelessness. I have residential support staff as well as case managers. And boundaries has been a major concern and issue in the workplace. So I want to utilize the executive director and the board of directors as my audience. I'll start out by providing some definitions. First of all, boundary is a set of limits or a border that we put in place, and then there are professional boundaries which relate to the framework that the organization in my program operates within. There are professional boundaries or professional ethics, and those are the standards that are governed primarily through the agency's mission and vision. And then there's boundary crossings, which are deemed as blurred or inadvertent or thoughtless behavior that in turn are deemed as crossing boundaries. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the different types of relationships that occur with employees and or staff, and some of them can be deemed as dual relationships, overlapping physical and sexual relationships. These relationships come into play a lot of times when the employee and or client play more than one role with each other. It's also important to be mindful about utilizing certain words like honey or baby or sugar that can make the client think that you're attracted to them. And so again, it crosses a level of boundaries. And then when you're talking to the client, be mindful of not squeezing or touching their shoulder or rubbing their back. That can send a mixed signal as well. Some of the risks that are related to those dual and sexual relationships that you as an employee would find yourself self-disclosing a little bit more personal information than you should be. Giving or receiving personal gifts from clients. I touched a little bit about that physical contact, and then looking at the personal gain that you are trying to attempt when you're crossing those boundaries. The relationship between the client and the case manager is solely put in place to advocate and support for that client. And so as an employee, when you find that you are crossing that goal of assisting the client, you probably are on the brink of violating that boundary level. And so some of the warning signs here would be when you find yourself thinking about the client on your off time or more than usual. When you find that you are advocating for this particular client more than you are for another client. When you find yourself being flirtatious, or when the client says that they can only deal, or when the client says that they only want to deal with you. Usually those are warning signs or red flags. It's also important to remember to focus on what the scope of your job is. Why am I here? What's in my job description? And that can help you stay away from gray areas, areas that might make you feel uncomfortable. There are also some boundary lines from an employee supervisor perspective. So an employee could be crossing those boundary lines when they're constantly coming in late to work and often have excuses, or when they come to work and within the first 30 minutes are taking their lunch, or if they're talking on their cell phone while they're at work. Some of the ways to prevent inappropriate behavior or boundary lines is to respect the cultural differences of your co-workers as well as clients, Be mindful of your expressions, your tone of voice, not being sexually abusive, not criticizing anybody's sexual orientation. And here's something that's really crucial, and that's learning to detect and deflect inappropriate conversations with clients. Some of the ways that you can assess yourself to determine if you're crossing those boundary lines is ask yourself, am I doing my job? Am I doing what's required in my job description? Am I meeting the needs of the client? Whose interests are being serviced here? Is it more me as an employee, or is it the client? And then there's confidentiality. It's really important to maintain a client's confidentiality. When a caseworker and a client sit down, they're disclosing a lot of personal information. And as an employee, we have to make sure that we secure their information as well as not disclose too much of our personal information. So in conclusion, I need to communicate to you as the executive director that as an agency and as a program, it's our responsibility to protect the clients and demonstrate appropriate standards of care and of boundaries. It's important that we handle each situation with the utmost professionalism. Thank you.